Maya Johnson drummed her fingers on the armrest as the plane began its final descent. After 16 hours of travel, she was finally arriving back in the United States. The past month had been a whirlwind tour across Asia, scouting locations for new hotels and meeting potential investors. As the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group, these international trips were becoming more frequent, but no less exhausting. She glanced at her reflection in the small airplane window. Her usually neat braids were slightly disheveled and dark circles had formed under her eyes. Maya hadn't bothered with makeup for the flight, and her comfortable travel clothes, jeans, sneakers, and an oversized sweatshirt, were a far cry from the tailored suits she typically wore for business meetings. "We will be landing in 15 minutes, the pilot announced over the intercom. "Local time is 9:45 p.m. Weather is clear with temperatures around 65 degrees. Maya sighed with relief. All she wanted now was a hot shower and a comfortable bed. Luckily, she wouldn't have to travel far. Tonight she would be staying at the Grand Wellington, the newest jewel in Pinnacle's crown of luxury hotels. The property had opened just 3 months ago, and this would be Maya's first visit since the grand opening. As the plane touched down, Maya turned on her phone. Several messages from her assistant, Priya, appeared on the screen. "Car waiting at Terminal B. Driver's name is Ken. Hotel knows you're coming. Everything set for tomorrow's investor meeting at 10 a.m. Get some rest." Maya smiled. Priya always thought of everything. She gathered her carry-on bag and made her way off the plane, moving through the terminal with practiced efficiency. Outside, she spotted a black car with a driver holding a small sign with M. Johnson written on it. "Ms. Johnson?" "I'm Ken," the driver said with a warm smile. "Let me take your bag." "Thank you, Ken," Maya replied, stifling a yawn. "The drive too?" The hotel took about 30 minutes. Maya tried to use the time to review some notes for tomorrow's meeting, but her tired eyes couldn't focus on the screen of her tablet. Instead, she gazed out the window at the city lights, allowing herself a moment of pride. 10 years ago, she had been a junior analyst at a struggling hotel chain. Now, at 36, she was the CEO of her own rapidly expanding hospitality group, with 15 properties across the globe. The car pulled up to the Grand Wellington, and Maya took a moment to admire the building. The elegant limestone facade was bathed in soft golden light, exactly as she had envisioned when approving the designs. The doorman rushed forward to open the car door. "Welcome to the Grand Wellington," he said, with a practiced smile that faltered slightly when he saw her casual appearance. Nevertheless, he quickly recovered. "Can I help you with your bags?" "Just this one, thank you," Maya said, handing him her carry-on. The lobby was even more beautiful than in the photos she had seen. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and plush seating areas invited weary travelers to rest. Maya had personally selected many of the design elements, from the local artwork adorning the walls to the signature scent that wafted through the air. She approached the front desk, where a young man in his 20s was typing on a computer. His name, tag read Tyler. He didn't look up immediately, finishing whatever he was doing before raising his eyes. "Good evening," Maya said with a tired smile. "I have a reservation under Johnson." Tyler's eyes flickered over her casual clothes and natural hair before he turned to his computer. "Johnson," he repeated, typing the name. He frowned slightly. "I'm not seeing a reservation under that name. Are you sure it's for tonight?" "Yes, I'm sure," Maya replied. "It should be under Maya Johnson. My assistant confirmed it this morning." Tyler typed again, his frown deepening. "I'm still not seeing anything." "What was the confirmation number?" Maya reached for her phone and scrolled through her emails. "Here it is," she said, showing him the screen. "Confirmation number WL54897. Tyler glanced at it briefly. "That's strange. I don't see that in our system." He looked past Maya to where a well-dressed couple had just entered the lobby. Perhaps there was a mix-up with the dates, or maybe the reservation was made at our downtown location instead. Maya felt a flicker of irritation. "No, the reservation is for this hotel tonight. I specifically requested a suite with a view of the park." Tyler's expression became slightly dismissive. "I'm sorry. But we're actually fully booked tonight. There's a medical conference in town and we've been at capacity for weeks. Maya glanced around the quiet lobby. There were only a handful of guests in sight. Fully booked? She repeated. Yes, Tyler said firmly. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Comfort Inn down the street? They usually have vacancies. The suggestion took Maya aback. The Comfort Inn was a budget hotel, worlds away from the luxury of the Grand Wellington. There was something in Tyler's tone that made it clear he'd made assumptions about her based on her appearance. I don't want to stay at the Comfort Inn, Maya said, keeping her voice level. I want to stay here where I have a reservation. Tyler sighed as if she was being difficult. Like I said, we don't have a reservation under your name and we're fully booked. As they were speaking, the well-dressed couple behind Maya approached the second reception desk. The other clerk, a young woman, greeted them warmly. Good evening. Welcome to the Grand Wellington. Do you have a reservation? Yes, under Caldwell, the man replied. The clerk typed briefly. Found it. We have you in a Deluxe King for 3 nights. Would you like a higher floor or a lower floor? Maya turned back to Tyler, who at least had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Look, she said quietly. I understand mistakes happen, but I'm very tired from a long flight and I need a room. If you can't find my reservation, can you just book me a new one? I'm happy to pay whatever the rate is. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. As I mentioned, we're fully booked tonight. Maya gestured toward the other couple, who were now being handed their room keys. You just checked them in. They had a reservation, Tyler said stiffly. And I showed you my confirmation, Maya countered. Tyler glanced at his colleague, who was now watching their interaction with curiosity. One moment, he said, and stepped away to confer with her in hushed tones. Maya stood at the desk, acutely aware of the stares from other guests in the lobby. She'd experienced this kind of treatment before, though it had become less frequent as she climbed the corporate ladder and started dressing the part of a successful executive. But tonight, in her travel clothes, without the shield of designer, labels, and perfect makeup, she was just another black woman being told there was no room at a luxury hotel. The clerks continued their whispered conversation, occasionally glancing in her direction. Maya took a deep breath and reached for her phone. There were other hotels in the area. She could find somewhere else to stay and deal with this situation tomorrow. But then she stopped herself. No, she wouldn't be driven away from her own hotel, because that was the thing Tyler didn't know. The Grand Wellington wasn't just any luxury hotel, it was her luxury hotel. Maya Johnson wasn't just any guest trying to check in. She was the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group, the company that owned this entire building. Maya straightened her shoulders and waited for Tyler to return. She was tired, but not too tired for what would come next. After all, she hadn't built a hotel empire by walking away from uncomfortable situations. Tyler approached the desk again, his expression carefully neutral. I've checked with my colleague, and we really don't have any available rooms tonight. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Maya nodded slowly. I see. In that case, could you please call the manager on duty? I'd like to speak with them. Tyler hesitated. The manager is very busy tonight with the conference guests. I'm sure they are, Maya replied calmly. But I'd still like to speak with them. Please. The politeness in her voice was steel-edged now. Tyler must have sensed it because he picked up the phone without further argument. Mr. Reynolds, there's a guest at the front desk insisting on speaking with you about a reservation issue. He paused, listening. Yes, sir. Thank you. He hung up and told Maya. Mr. Reynolds will be with you shortly. Maya nodded and stepped back from the desk. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to Priya. You won't believe what's happening at the Wellington. Within seconds, Priya replied. What? Everything was confirmed. Maya was about to type a response when a man in his 40s approached, wearing a well-tailored suit with the hotel's logo on the breast pocket. Good evening, I'm David Reynolds, the night manager. I understand there's an issue with your reservation. Maya looked up at him, deciding in that moment exactly how she wanted this situation to unfold. What she would do next would surprise everyone. Most of all, Tyler. Maya took a moment to study David Reynolds. The night manager had a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He stood with his hands clasped in front of him, the picture of professional courtesy, but there was something in his posture that suggested impatience. "Yes," Maya said calmly. "I have a confirmed reservation for tonight, but your colleague is telling me it doesn't exist in your system and that you're fully booked." Reynolds glanced at Tyler, who nodded slightly. "I apologize for the confusion, Ms. Johnson, Maya Johnson." Reynolds typed the name into the computer at the desk. "I don't see a reservation under that name. Do you have a confirmation number?" Maya, once again, showed the email on her phone. WL54897. Reynolds studied it with a frown. "This does appear to be one of our confirmation numbers, but it's not showing up in our system." He looked up at her. Sometimes when bookings are made through third-party websites, there can be communication errors. "I didn't book through a third party," Maya said. "The reservation was made directly by my assistant." As they spoke, another couple entered the lobby and approached Tyler at the second desk position. They were an older white couple, dressed in expensive but casual clothes. The woman wore a statement necklace that Maya recognized as a designer piece that cost more than some people's monthly rent. "Good evening," Tyler greeted them warmly. "Welcome to the Grand Wellington. How can I help you?" "We have a reservation." "Under Peterson," the man said. Tyler typed quickly and nodded. "Yes, I have you right here. A luxury suite for 2 nights. Would you prefer a high floor or a lower floor?" Maya turned back to Reynolds, one eyebrow raised. "It seems you do have rooms available after all." Reynolds cleared his throat. "Those would be pre-reserved rooms for guests with confirmed bookings." "Like mine," Maya said pointedly. Reynolds looked uncomfortable. "As I explained, we can't find your reservation in our system." Maya pulled out her phone again and opened her calendar app. "I booked the Wellington Parkview suite 3 weeks ago. My assistant confirmed it by phone this morning." "The Wellington suite?" Reynolds's expression changed slightly. "That's our presidential suite. It's reserved for special guests." There was something in the way he said "special guests" that made Maya's jaw tighten. She knew exactly what he meant. Special guests, important guests, guests who looked like they belonged in a luxury hotel, guests who didn't look like her. "I'm aware of what kind of suite it is," Maya said. "I'm also aware that I have a confirmed reservation for it." Reynolds glanced around the lobby, which was becoming busier as more guests from the medical conference returned from dinner. Several people were watching the exchange with curiosity. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding," he said, lowering his voice. "The Wellington suite is our most expensive accommodation. It's over $5,000 per night." Maya met his gaze steadily. "I'm aware of the price." Reynolds looked skeptical. "Ms. Johnson, I'm trying to help you here. Maybe your assistant made a mistake? Or perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of our sister properties downtown. They offer more accessible rates." Maya felt a familiar heat rising in her chest, the kind that came from years of dealing with people who made assumptions about her based on her appearance. But she had learned long ago not to show anger. In the business world, an angry black woman was too easily dismissed. "Mr. Reynolds," she said evenly, "I don't want to stay at another property. I want to stay in the suite that was reserved for me at this hotel." Reynolds sighed. "As both Tyler and I have explained, we have no record of your reservation, and we're fully booked tonight." "Yet you just checked in the Petersons," Maya pointed out. "They had a confirmed reservation," Reynolds replied. "So did I," Maya countered. Reynolds's professional veneer was beginning to crack. "Ms. Johnson, without a reservation in our system, there's nothing I can do. We can't just create rooms out of thin air." Maya took a deep breath. She had hoped to avoid pulling rank, but Reynolds was leaving her no choice. "Mr. Reynolds, I think there's something you should know." Before she could finish, a young woman in a hotel uniform hurried up to the desk. "Mr. Reynolds, the doctor from room 712 is complaining about noise from the ice machine again." Reynolds looked relieved at the interruption. I'll handle it in a moment, Zoe. He turned back to Maya. If you'll excuse me, I have another matter to attend to. This won't wait, Maya said firmly. Reynolds's expression hardened. Ms. Johnson, I've explained the situation. We don't have a room for you tonight. I can call the Comfort Inn down the street to see if they have availability, or you can try one of our other properties. Maya noticed that a small crowd had gathered nearby, pretending not to watch but obviously interested in the confrontation. She saw a mix of expressions, some curious, some uncomfortable, a few sympathetic. She also noticed that two security guards had positioned themselves near the front desk, trying to look casual but clearly ready to intervene if necessary. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. They thought she was causing a scene. They thought she might become a problem that needed to be removed. Maya had worked too hard and come too far to be treated this way, especially in her own hotel. Before you call security, she said quietly, I think you should know who I am. Reynolds blinked in surprise. Excuse me? My full name is Maya Johnson. I'm the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group. There was a moment of stillness as Reynolds processed her words. His face went through a series of expressions: disbelief, confusion, and then slowly dawning horror. Pinnacle Hospitality? He repeated. Yes, Maya said. The company that owns this hotel and 14 others around the world. Reynolds's face had gone pale. I don't. From behind them, a voice called out, Maya? Maya Johnson? Maya turned to see a woman hurrying across the lobby, her face lighting up with recognition. It was Diane Chen, the hotel's operations director. Maya had hired her personally 6 months ago. It is you, Diane exclaimed, reaching Maya and grasping her hands warmly. I didn't know you were visiting today. Why didn't you tell us you were coming? It was in the system, Maya said, glancing meaningfully at Reynolds. At least it was supposed to be. Diane looked confused, then noticed Reynolds's stricken expression and the tense atmosphere. Is everything okay? Did something happen? There seems to be some confusion about my reservation, Maya said carefully. Mr. Reynolds and Tyler here were just explaining that the hotel is fully booked and that my reservation doesn't exist in the system. Diane's eyes widened. What? That's impossible. She turned to Reynolds. David, this is Maya Johnson. She's our CEO. Reynolds had gone from pale to ashen. There must have been a misunderstanding. Clearly, Diane said. She turned to the computer and typed rapidly. Here it is. The Wellington Suite, reserved for Ms. Johnson. It's right here in the system. She looked up at Reynolds with a mixture of confusion and anger. How could you miss this? Reynolds stammered something incoherent, while Tyler stood frozen behind the desk, his expression a mixture of shock and terror. Maya watched them, noting how quickly their demeanor had changed. The dismissiveness was gone, replaced by fear and deference. It was a transformation she had seen before. People who treated her one way when they thought she was nobody important, and another way when they discovered who she really was. Diane turned to Maya, mortified. Ms. Johnson, I can't begin to apologize enough for this. Please let me escort you to your suite right away. The crowd that had gathered was now watching with open interest. Maya could hear whispers as people realized what was happening. She saw the realization on their faces, the shock when they understood that the black woman in travel clothes who had been denied a room was actually the owner of the entire hotel chain. That would be appreciated, Diane, Maya said calmly. Diane gestured for a bellhop to take Maya's bag, then turned back to Reynolds and Tyler. We'll discuss this tomorrow, she said in a low, serious tone. Then to Maya, this way, please. As they walked toward the elevators, Maya could feel the stairs following her. Diane was chattering nervously, apologizing profusely, promising that those responsible would be dealt with. But Maya was only half listening. Her mind was already working on what would happen next, because this wasn't just about her being denied a room. It was about a systemic problem that affected people who didn't have the protection of a CEO title People who couldn't reveal their true identity and watch attitudes transform in an instant. In the elevator, Diane continued her stream of apologies. I don't know how this happened. Your reservation was clearly in the system. I confirmed it myself when your assistant called this morning. Yet somehow both Tyler and Mr. Reynolds claimed they couldn't find it, Maya said. Diane looked uncomfortable. I'm sure there was just some technical glitch. Maya gave her a look that silenced the excuse. They both knew what had happened. It wasn't a glitch. It was bias, plain and simple. The elevator doors opened onto the top floor, and Diane led the way to the Wellington suite. She used her master key to open the door, revealing a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights and the dark expanse of the park. Is there anything else you need tonight? Diane asked anxiously. Anything at all? Maya thought for a moment. Yes, actually. Could you have someone bring me a copy of the employee handbook and all current training materials for front desk staff? Diane looked surprised. The employee handbook tonight? Yes, Maya said. And I'd like to see the reservation records for the past month. How many rooms were marked as fully booked when they weren't? And any complaints from guests who were told their reservations didn't exist? Diane swallowed hard. Of course. I'll have everything sent up right away. Thank you, Maya said. And Diane? I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention my presence to anyone else tonight. I'll make myself known tomorrow. After Diane left, Maya stood in the middle of the luxurious suite, still in her travel clothes, still tired from her long journey. But sleep would have to wait. She had work to do. Because what had happened tonight wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been judged by their appearance, rather than their character or credentials. And Maya Johnson was in a unique position to do something about it. She kicked off her shoes and walked to the window, looking out at the city she had helped build. Tomorrow would be interesting, not just for her, but for everyone at the Grand Wellington. And what she had planned would surprise them all. Maya woke to the soft chime of her phone alarm. For a moment she was disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings until she remembered where she was. The Wellington suite at her own hotel. The room she had almost been denied. The events of the previous night came flooding back. The dismissive clerk, the skeptical manager, the assumptions made based on her appearance. Then the shock on their faces when they realized who she was. She rose from the king-sized bed and walked to the windows, drawing back the curtains to reveal a stunning view of the city in morning light. The suite was truly spectacular, with its marble bathroom, separate living area, and private terrace. This was luxury at its finest, the kind of luxury that some people thought shouldn't be accessible to someone who looked like her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Morning, just checking you got into the hotel, okay? Your message last night sounded like there might have been an issue. Maya typed back, I'm in, but there was definitely an issue. I'll tell you about it when I see you. Meeting still on for 10? Yes, everything's set. Conference room A on the mezzanine level. Maya placed her phone on the bedside table and headed for the shower. As the hot water washed away the last remnants of her travel fatigue, she thought about what had happened. She wasn't naive. She knew bias existed in the hospitality industry as it did everywhere. But to experience it so blatantly in her own hotel was a wake-up call. After her shower, Maya dressed carefully in one of the tailored suits she had packed. Today there would be no mistaking her for anything other than what she was, the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group. She applied her makeup with precision, twisted her braids into an elegant updo, and put on the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her when she graduated from business school. Never let them see anything but excellence, her grandmother had told her. It's not fair that you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, but that's the world we live in. Maya had lived by those words, excelling in school, graduating at the top of her class, climbing the corporate ladder with determination and grit. And now she was the boss, with the power to make real change. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Room service, called a voice. Maya hadn't ordered breakfast, but she opened the door to find a young woman with a cart laden with food, fresh fruit, pastries, coffee, juice. "Good morning, Ms. Johnson," the server said with a nervous smile. "Compliments of the hotel. Director Chen thought you might enjoy breakfast before your meeting." Maya recognized the gesture for what it was: damage control. "Thank you," she said, allowing the server to wheel the cart into the suite. "Is there anything else you need, Ms. Johnson?" "No, thank you. This is fine." After the server left, Maya poured herself a cup of coffee and checked her watch. It was 8:30 a.m. Her meeting wasn't for another hour and a half, which gave her time to review the materials Diane had sent up last night. The employee handbook was standard for the industry, with sections on customer service, conflict resolution, and company policies. Nothing unusual there. The training materials for front desk staff included modules on greeting guests, handling complaints, and processing reservations. Again, all standard. But what interested Maya most were the reservation records. Over the past month, there had been 23 instances where guests were told the hotel was fully booked when rooms were actually available. And of those 23 cases, 19 involved guests with names that suggested they might be people of color. Maya sipped her coffee, considering the pattern. It was too consistent to be coincidence, but too subtle to have been caught by normal oversight. Someone would have had to be specifically looking for it, as she was now. Her phone rang. It was Diane. "Good morning, Ms. Johnson. I just wanted to check that you have everything you need for your meeting." "Yes, thank you, Diane, and thank you for sending up the materials I requested." There was a pause. "Have you had a chance to review them?" "I have," Maya said. "We'll discuss it later. For now, could you arrange for the hotel's executive team to join my investor meeting this morning? And I'd like Mr. Reynolds and Tyler to be there as well." "The night manager and the front desk clerk?" Diane sounded surprised. "They're not on duty until this evening." "I'm aware of that," Maya said. "Please call them in." "Of course," Diane replied, a note of unease in her voice. "Anything else?" "Yes, I'd like you to pull the security footage from the lobby last night from around 10 p.m. Have it ready to view in the conference room." The security footage? Now Diane sounded genuinely alarmed. "Ms. Johnson, if this is about what happened last night, I want to assure you that it was an isolated incident. We've never had complaints like this before." "We'll discuss it at the meeting," Maya said firmly. 10 a.m., conference room A. She ended the call and finished her breakfast, then spent some time reviewing her notes for the investor presentation. Pinnacle Hospitality Group was seeking funding for an ambitious expansion into European markets, and today's meeting was crucial for securing the capital they needed. At 9:45, Maya gathered her materials and left the suite. She took the elevator down to the mezzanine level where Priya was waiting for her outside conference room A. "Good morning," Priya said, handing Maya a tablet. "The investors just arrived. They're being served coffee now." She lowered her voice. "What happened last night? Your text had me worried." "Let's just say I got to experience our customer service from a different perspective," Maya replied. "We'll talk about it in the meeting." Priya looked confused but nodded. "By the way, why is half the hotel staff here? I thought this was just for the investors." "I've made a slight change to the agenda," Maya said. They entered the conference room, which fell silent as Maya walked in. Around the large table sat the investors, representatives from 3 major venture capital firms interested in funding Pinnacle's expansion. Also present were the hotel's executive team, looking nervous and uncertain. And at the far end of the table, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else, sat David Reynolds and Tyler. "Good morning, everyone," Maya said, taking her place at the head of the table. "Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin our discussion about Pinnacle's European expansion plans, I'd like to address something that happened last night, which I believe has direct bearing on our company's future." She nodded to Priya, who dimmed the lights and started a video on the large screen at the end of the room. It was the security footage from the lobby, showing Maya's arrival and her interaction with Tyler and Reynolds. The room was completely silent as they watched. The footage had no audio, but the body language told the story clearly enough. Tyler's dismissive attitude, Reynolds's condescension, the transformation when Diane arrived and revealed Maya's identity. When the video ended, Priya turned the lights back up. Maya looked around the table. The investors appeared uncomfortable. The hotel executives looked mortified. Tyler was staring at his hands, and Reynolds was visibly sweating. "I wanted you all to see that," Maya said calmly, "because it illustrates a problem that goes beyond one night or one guest or one hotel. What you just witnessed happens to people every day. People who don't have the protection of a CEO title to shield them once their identity is revealed." She turned to Reynolds. "Mr. Reynolds, if I hadn't been the CEO, would I have received a room last night?" Reynolds shifted in his seat. "Ms. Johnson, I want to apologize for the misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Maya interrupted. "My reservation was in the system. Diane confirmed that. Yet both you and Tyler claimed it wasn't." "Why?" Reynolds glanced at the hotel's general manager, hoping for rescue, but none came. I don't know what to say," he finally admitted. "Then, let me help you," Maya said. "You made assumptions based on how I looked. You decided that someone who looked like me couldn't possibly be the type of guest who would stay in your luxury hotel, let alone in your most expensive suite." She turned to the investors. "This is why our European expansion is so important, not just for the financial growth of our company, but for the cultural impact we can have. Pinnacle was founded on the principle that luxury should be accessible to all who can afford it, regardless of what they look like. But clearly we have work to do within our own organization before we can truly deliver on that promise." One of the investors, a woman in her 50s, spoke up. "What are you proposing, Ms. Johnson?" Maya smiled. "I'm glad you asked. I spent most of last night reviewing our training protocols and reservation data. What I found was disturbing, but not surprising, a pattern of bias that has gone unnoticed and unaddressed." She stood and walked around the table, her presence commanding the room. "Effective immediately, Pinnacle Hospitality Group will be implementing a comprehensive anti-bias training program across all our properties. This isn't just about diversity, workshops, or sensitivity training. This is about fundamental changes to how we hire, train, and evaluate our staff." She paused near Reynolds and Tyler. "But we won't be firing anyone over what happened last night." A murmur of surprise went through the room. Reynolds looked up in shock. "Instead," Maya continued, "Mr. Reynolds and Tyler will be joining a special task force, led by me personally, to develop and implement these new training protocols. Who better to understand the problem than those who have demonstrated it so clearly?" Tyler finally found his voice. "You want us to help, after what we did?" Maya looked at him thoughtfully. "Tell me, Tyler, when you saw me walk into the lobby last night, what was your first thought?" Tyler squirmed uncomfortably. I guess I thought you didn't look like our usual guests." "And what do your usual guests look like?" He couldn't answer. "That, at least not honestly in a room full of people." "Exactly," Maya said. "That's the kind of thinking we need to change, and having you involved in that change will be more valuable than simply replacing you with someone else who might have the same biases." She returned to her seat at the head of the table. "Now, to our investors. The funding we're seeking isn't just for new properties. It's for a new vision of what hospitality can be. A vision where everyone is truly welcome, not just in theory, but in practice." The room was silent as everyone absorbed her words. Finally, the female investor spoke again. "Ms. Johnson, I think I speak for all of us when I say we're even more interested in Pinnacle's future now than we were when we walked in. What happened to you last night was inexcusable, but your response is exactly why we want to partner with your company. You've turned a negative incident into an opportunity for growth and change." Murmurs of agreement came from the other investors. The investor meeting ended with handshakes and promises of support. The three venture capital firms had been impressed, not just by Pinnacle's expansion plans, but by Maya's handling of the previous night's incident. They saw a CEO who could turn a problem into an opportunity, a valuable quality in any business leader. As the investors filed out of the conference room, Maya turned her attention to the hotel staff who remained. The tension in the room was palpable. Most were avoiding eye contact, staring at their notepads or phones. Tyler looked like he might be sick. Reynolds kept adjusting his tie nervously. "I'd like to speak with the hotel's executive team privately," Maya said. "Mr. Reynolds." "Tyler, please wait outside. I'll call you back in shortly." Once the door closed behind them, Maya took a seat and looked around at the remaining staff. Diane Chen, the operations director, James Wong, the general manager, Layla Patel, the head of human resources, and a few other department heads. "Want to be clear about something," Maya began. "What happened last night isn't just about me being denied a room. It's about a culture that allows bias to influence decision-making, even if it's unconscious." James Wong spoke first. "Ms. Johnson, on behalf of the entire staff, I want to apologize for what happened. It's inexcusable, and we take full responsibility." "I appreciate that, James," Maya replied. "But apologies aren't enough. I want to know how we're going to prevent this from happening to anyone else." Layla from HR cleared her throat. "We already have diversity training as part of our onboarding process. Perhaps we need to make it more comprehensive?" Maya shook her head. "Traditional diversity training isn't working. Studies have shown it can actually reinforce stereotypes rather than eliminate them." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Let me tell you something. Before I founded Pinnacle, I was a frequent business traveler. I can't count the number of times I was treated differently because of how I look. Questioned about my room reservation. Asked if I was in the right place when I entered a hotel restaurant. Watched more closely by security in the lobby." She turned back to face the team. "I started this company with a vision of creating spaces where everyone feels welcome. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that. We've been so focused on luxury and expansion that we've neglected the human element of hospitality." The room was silent as her words sank in. "So here's what we're going to do," Maya continued. "We're launching a new initiative across all Pinnacle properties, starting with the Grand Wellington. We're calling it Hospitality Without Boundaries." She picked up her tablet and projected a document onto the screen at the end of the room, an outline she had created in the early hours of the morning. "This isn't just another corporate diversity program," she explained. "This is a fundamental reimagining of how we approach hospitality. It's about creating systems that don't rely on individual good intentions but actually prevent bias from affecting guest experiences." The outline detailed a comprehensive approach, changes to hiring practices, reservation systems, customer service protocols, and evaluation metrics. But most revolutionary was the plan for ongoing testing and accountability. "We'll be implementing regular secret guest visits," Maya explained. "People of different backgrounds will visit our hotels and report on their experiences. The results will be tied directly to performance evaluations and bonuses for all staff, from housekeeping to management." James looked concerned. "That's quite extensive." "Yes, it is," Maya agreed. "And it's necessary. We're not just trying to avoid embarrassing incidents. We're trying to create a new standard for the industry." She could see the executives exchanging glances, likely calculating the costs and logistics of implementing such a program. But Maya had anticipated this. "I know what you're thinking," she said. "It's expensive. It's complicated. It might make some people uncomfortable, but consider the alternative. Continuing as we are and risking not just more incidents like last night, but the reputation damage that comes with them. In today's world, one viral story about discrimination can undo years of brand building." Diane nodded slowly. "You're right. And from an operations standpoint, these changes will actually improve efficiency. Clearer protocols mean fewer judgment calls, which means fewer mistakes." "Exactly," Maya said. "This isn't just about doing the right thing morally. It's about doing the right thing for our business." Layla raised her hand. "What about Reynolds and Tyler? You mentioned keeping them on, but I'm not sure I understand why." Maya smiled slightly. "That's a fair question. Tell me, if we fire them, what message does that send?" "That we don't tolerate bias," Layla replied. "But does it actually?" Solve the problem, Maya countered. Or does it just hide it? If we fire them and hire replacements, we might get people with the same biases who are just better at hiding them. She walked back to her seat and sat down. No, I want Reynolds and Tyler involved precisely because they made these mistakes. They're going to help us understand how these biases manifest and how to address them systemically. And their journey will be a powerful example for others. The executives looked skeptical but intrigued. Now, Maya said, let's bring them back in. When Reynolds and Tyler returned to the room, they stood awkwardly near the door, like school children called to the principal's office. Please, sit down, Maya said, gesturing to two empty chairs near her. They sat, both looking pale and resigned, clearly expecting to be fired. Mr. Reynolds, Tyler, Maya began, I want to thank you for joining us today, especially on such short notice. The unexpected courtesy seemed to confuse them further. As I mentioned earlier, you won't be losing your jobs over what happened last night. Instead, you're being given new responsibilities as part of a special task force focused on improving guest experiences across all our properties. Reynolds blinked in surprise. I don't understand. It's simple, Maya said. You made mistakes that reflect broader issues within our company culture. Now you're going to help us fix those issues. Tyler looked up for the first time. Why would you want our help? After what we did? Maya leaned forward. Because you've demonstrated exactly the kind of thinking we need to change. Who better to help us identify and address bias than people who have recognized it in themselves? She turned to the screen where her outline was still displayed. This is our new initiative, Hospitality Without Boundaries. You'll both be working directly with me to develop and implement these protocols across all Pinnacle properties. Reynolds adjusted his glasses nervously. Ms. Johnson, I want you to know how truly sorry I am about last night. I never intended. I know you didn't, Maya interrupted gently. That's exactly the point. Bias isn't always intentional. Often it's the result of unconscious assumptions we don't even realize we're making. She looked between the two men. I don't believe either of you came to work last night thinking, I'm going to discriminate against someone today. You made split-second judgments based on appearance, which is something all humans do. The problem isn't that you have these biases, it's that our systems allowed those biases to affect a guest's experience. Tyler's shoulders slumped slightly as the tension began to leave his body. So, what exactly will we be doing? For the next 3 months, you'll be part of a team developing new training and operational protocols, Maya explained. You'll help us identify moments in the guest experience where bias can creep in and create systems to prevent that from happening. She smiled slightly. Think of yourselves as consultants who have unique insight into the problem. Reynolds still looked bewildered by this turn of events. And after the 3 months? That depends on you, Maya said honestly. If you embrace this opportunity and make meaningful contributions to the project, there will be a place for you at Pinnacle. If not, she shrugged. Then we'll reassess. She stood, signaling that the meeting was coming to an end. I expect both of you to report to Ms. Patel in HR tomorrow morning to begin the process. We'll be bringing in experts in bias training and hospitality management to work with you, but your personal experiences and insights will be invaluable. As the room began to clear, Maya called out, Tyler, could you stay for a moment? The young man froze, then turned back nervously. Yes, Ms. Johnson? When everyone else had left, Maya gestured for him to sit again. I want to understand something. When I first approached the desk last night, before I said a word, you looked at me and made assumptions. What were they? Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know if I should say. Please, Maya said. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I genuinely want to understand. Tyler took a deep breath. I guess I thought you didn't look like you could afford our hotel. You were dressed so casually and your hair was. He trailed off, embarrassed. My hair was what? Maya prompted. Not what our usual guests have, Tyler admitted quietly. And then when you asked about the Wellington suite, which is so expensive, it just didn't seem possible that it was really your reservation. Maya nodded thoughtfully. And if I had been wearing a designer suit with my hair straightened, would your reaction have been different? Tyler looked down at his hands. Probably, he whispered. Thank you for your honesty, Maya said. That's exactly the kind of insight we need for this project. The ability to recognize and acknowledge these assumptions is the first step toward changing them. She stood and extended her hand. I'll see you tomorrow, Tyler. After he left, Maya stayed in the conference room alone, reflecting on the morning's events. She had come to the Grand Wellington expecting to deliver a standard investor presentation. Instead, she had launched what might become the most significant initiative of her career. Her phone buzzed with a message from Priya. The investors just called. They're increasing their funding offer by 20%. They were impressed. Maya smiled. Sometimes the most challenging moments led to the most unexpected opportunities. She gathered her materials and headed back to her suite. There was still much work to be done. Documents to draft, experts to contact, protocols to design. But for the first time in a long time, Maya felt energized by a new purpose. Because this wasn't just about fixing one incident or improving one hotel. It was about creating a model that could transform the entire industry. A model built not on punishment and shame, but on understanding and growth. As she walked through the lobby, Maya noticed the staff watching her with a mixture of respect and apprehension. Word had clearly spread about the morning's meetings. She nodded to them as she passed, sensing a shift in the atmosphere already. Back in her suite, Maya kicked off her heels and settled at the desk with her laptop. She began drafting a company-wide email announcing the new initiative. The words flowed easily as she outlined her vision for hospitality without boundaries. This would be her legacy. Not just building luxury hotels, but creating spaces where true hospitality knew no limits and made no assumptions. Where everyone was welcomed with the same warmth and respect, regardless of appearance or background. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows of the Wellington suite, Maya felt a sense of rightness about the path ahead. What had begun as an unpleasant experience had transformed into an opportunity for meaningful change. And that, she realized, was the true measure of leadership. Not avoiding problems, but transforming them into possibilities. Not punishing mistakes, but learning from them. Not maintaining the status quo, but imagining and creating something better. Maya Johnson, the CEO who had been refused a room in her own hotel, was now using that experience to ensure no one else would face the same treatment. And in doing so, she was redefining what hospitality meant in the 21st century. The response that surprised everyone wasn't anger or retribution. It was vision and transformation. It was the courage to look at a painful truth and see in it the seeds of something better. And as Maya finished drafting her announcement, she knew that this was just the beginning. Because true change didn't happen overnight or with a single initiative. It happened through consistent effort and unwavering commitment. But it always began with a response. A choice to move forward rather than back. To build rather than destroy. To transform rather than condemn. And that was exactly what Maya Johnson intended to do. 6 months later, Maya stood in the grand ballroom of the Grand Wellington, watching as guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. The hotel was hosting a special event to mark the halfway point of the Hospitality Without Boundaries initiative, and the room was filled with industry leaders, journalists, and pinnacle executives from around the world. Quite a turnout, said Priya, appearing at Maya's side with 2 glasses of champagne. She handed one to Maya. The Wall Street Journal is here, along with reporters from 3 major travel magazines. Maya took a sip of champagne. Good. The more coverage, the better. This isn't just about Pinnacle anymore. It's about changing industry standards. And change they had. In the 6 months since that night when Maya was denied a room in her own hotel, Pinnacle Hospitality Group had undergone a remarkable transformation. The Hospitality Without Boundaries initiative had grown from a response to a single incident into a comprehensive program that was reshaping how the company approached every aspect of its business. There she is, called a voice, and Maya turned to see Diane Chen approaching with a small group of people. Maya, I'd like you to meet the team from the London property. They've flown in specially for the event. Maya greeted the newcomers warmly. As Diane made introductions, Maya noticed a familiar face hovering at the edge of the group. Tyler, the desk clerk whose dismissive treatment had sparked this whole journey. "And of course you know Tyler," Diane said, following Maya's gaze. "He's been doing remarkable work with the training program." Tyler stepped forward, looking markedly different from the nervous young man who had sat across from Maya in the conference room 6 months ago. He stood taller, more confident, dressed in a well-fitted suit with a pin on his lapel that identified him as part of the Hospitality Without Boundaries task force. "Ms. Johnson," he said, extending his hand. "It's good to see you again." "Tyler," Maya replied, shaking his hand. "I've been hearing good things about your work." He smiled shyly. "It's been educational, in the best possible way." "I'd love to hear more about it," Maya said. "Why don't you join me for a moment?" As they moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom, Maya observed the positive changes in Tyler. The defensive, fearful demeanor was gone, replaced by a thoughtful confidence that suited him well. "So," she said, "tell me about these past 6 months from your perspective." Tyler took a deep breath. "Honestly, they've been the most challenging and rewarding months of my career. When you first announced that I wouldn't be fired, but would instead help develop the new training program, I thought it was some kind of elaborate punishment." Maya laughed. "And now?" "Now I understand what you were doing," he said. "You weren't just giving me a second chance. You were asking me to be part of the solution." He glanced around the ballroom. "The first few weeks were tough. Some colleagues wouldn't even speak to me. They thought I'd ruined the hotel's reputation. But as we got deeper into developing the training modules and testing the new protocols, something changed. People started to see that this wasn't about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It was about creating a better system for everyone." Maya nodded encouragingly. "And the training program itself? How's that going?" Tyler's face lit up with unexpected enthusiasm. "It's amazing. We've moved way beyond those old-school diversity seminars that everyone dreads. The program we've developed is interactive, practical, and actually addresses the real situations that come up in hospitality." He pulled out his phone and showed Maya a screen with statistics. "We've now trained staff at 12 Pinnacle properties. Pre- and post-assessments show a 78% improvement in recognition of bias scenarios and a 92% improvement in appropriate responses." Maya raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Those are extraordinary numbers." "The key was making it relevant," Tyler explained. "We use real scenarios, like what happened with you, and walk through them step by step. We've created protocols that actually work in high-pressure situations when people don't have time to carefully consider every decision." A server approached with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and Maya noticed how Tyler thanked them with genuine warmth, a small but telling indicator of how his perspective had shifted. "There's something else," Tyler said after the server moved on. "Something I've never properly said to you." He met Maya's eyes directly. "I am truly sorry for how I treated you that night. There's no excuse for it. But I want you to know that experience changed me fundamentally. Not just professionally, but personally." Maya nodded, appreciating his sincerity. "That's all any of us can hope for, to learn and grow from our mistakes. The fact that you've taken this opportunity and turned it into something positive says a lot about your character." "Ms. Johnson," called a voice, and Maya turned to see James Wong, the hotel's general manager, approaching with an older man in an expensive suit. "I'd like to introduce you to Harold Winters from Luxury Travel Quarterly. He's very interested in hearing about our initiative." Maya excused herself from Tyler and greeted the journalist, who wasted no time getting to the heart of the matter. "Ms. Johnson, your Hospitality Without Boundaries program has created quite a buzz in the industry," Winters said. "Some are calling it revolutionary, while others suggest it's an overreaction to a single incident. What would you say to the skeptics?" Maya smiled. "I'd say they're missing the point. This program wasn't created because of one incident. It was created because that incident revealed a systemic issue that affects guests every day in hotels around the world." She gestured around the ballroom. "Look at who's here tonight. Executives from competing hotel chains, industry consultants, travel writers. They wouldn't be here if this was just about one CEO's bad experience. They're here because they recognize that addressing bias in hospitality isn't just the right thing to do morally. It's good business. Winters scribbled notes. And the bottom line? Has this initiative affected Pinnacle's profits? Absolutely, Maya said without hesitation. Our guest satisfaction scores are up 23% across all properties. Repeat bookings have increased by 17%. And our social media sentiment analysis shows a 45% improvement in positive mentions. She leaned in slightly. But the most telling statistic? Employee retention. In an industry with notoriously high turnover, we've reduced staff departures by 34% since implementing the program. People want to work for a company that values fairness and respect. Fascinating, Winters murmured. And I understand you've been approached by other hotel chains interested in adopting similar programs? Maya nodded. We've had inquiries from 11 major hospitality groups. We're currently developing a version of our training program that can be licensed to other companies. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of silverware tapping against glass. The crowd quieted as Diane Chen stepped onto the small stage at the end of the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the 6-month milestone of our Hospitality Without Boundaries initiative. We're honored to have so many distinguished guests here to witness the positive changes taking place at Pinnacle Hospitality Group. She gestured toward Maya. None of this would have been possible without the vision and leadership of our CEO, Maya Johnson. When faced with a situation that many would have handled with anger or simple retribution, Maya instead saw an opportunity for transformation. I'd like to invite her to say a few words about the journey we've been on these past 6 months. Applause filled the room as Maya made her way to the stage. As she looked out at the assembled guests, she felt a moment of satisfaction. What had begun as an uncomfortable confrontation had blossomed into something far more significant than she could have imagined. Thank you, Diane, Maya began. 6 months ago, I stood in the lobby of this very hotel, exhausted from international travel, dressed in comfortable clothes rather than business attire, and was told there was no room for me, not because the hotel was actually full, but because assumptions were made based on how I looked. The room was silent, everyone aware of the story that had now become legend in the hospitality industry. I could have responded in many ways, Maya continued. I could have fired the staff involved. I could have buried the incident to protect the hotel's reputation. I could have simply moved on and chalked it up as yet another example of the bias that many travelers face every day. She paused, looking out at the audience. Instead, I chose to see it as an opportunity, a chance to address a problem that affects not just Pinnacle, not just the hospitality industry, but society as a whole. How do we ensure that everyone is treated with the same respect and dignity, regardless of appearance, background, or circumstance? Maya gestured to the side of the stage. I'd like to invite someone to join me, someone who has been instrumental in the success of this initiative. Tyler, would you please come up here? There was a murmur of surprise as Tyler made his way to the stage. Everyone in the room knew his role in the original incident. His appearance alongside Maya was unexpected. For those who don't know, Tyler was the desk clerk who initially turned me away that night, Maya explained as he joined her. Today he's one of our most valuable team members, helping to lead our training programs across all Pinnacle properties. She turned to him. Tyler, would you share a bit about your experience these past 6 months? Tyler looked momentarily surprised at being put on the spot, but he quickly composed himself. When Ms. Johnson revealed who she was that night, I thought, my career was over, he said, his voice steady despite the hundreds of eyes on him. I expected to be fired, and I probably deserved to be. He glanced at Maya. Instead, I was given a challenge, to help create a program that would prevent others from making the same mistakes I did. At first, I was skeptical. I didn't think it was possible to eliminate bias completely, but what I've learned is that while we can't change human nature overnight, we can create systems that help us recognize and overcome our biases. Tyler's voice grew stronger as he continued. In the past 6 months, I've traveled to 8 Pinnacle properties, helping to implement our new training program. I've shared my story hundreds of times, using my own mistake as a teaching tool. And I've seen firsthand how this approach, focusing on understanding and growth rather than blame and punishment, creates real, lasting change. The audience applauded as Tyler stepped back and Maya returned to the microphone. "What Tyler just demonstrated is the heart of our approach," she said. "We're not interested in creating a culture of fear where staff are afraid to make mistakes. We're interested in creating a culture of learning where mistakes become opportunities for growth." She looked out at the audience, meeting the eyes of the journalists and industry leaders. The Hospitality Without Boundaries initiative isn't just about avoiding discrimination. It's about redefining what hospitality means in the 21st century. It's about creating spaces where everyone, guests and staff alike, feels valued, respected, and welcome. Maya gestured to the back of the room, where large screens displayed the Pinnacle logo alongside the Hospitality Without Boundaries emblem. "Tonight we're announcing the next phase of our initiative. Beginning next month, all Pinnacle properties will implement a new set of operational standards that have been tested and refined over the past 6 months. These include changes to our reservation systems, check-in procedures, security protocols, and staff evaluation metrics." She smiled. "But most importantly, we're making our training program available to the entire hospitality industry. Because this isn't about gaining a competitive advantage, it's about raising the standard for everyone." The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause. "I'd like to end with a story," Maya said as the clapping subsided. "Last week I was visiting our property in Chicago. I arrived late at night dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, my hair wrapped in a scarf. I stood in line at the check-in desk behind several other guests, watching how they were treated." She paused. "When it was my turn, the desk clerk, who had never met me and had no idea I was the CEO, greeted me with the same warm respect she had shown to every guest before me. She found my reservation immediately, addressed me as Ms. Johnson rather, than by my first name, and made me feel genuinely welcome." Maya smiled. "That might seem like a small thing, but it represents exactly the transformation we've been working toward. A standard of service that doesn't change based on how someone looks or what they're wearing or the color of their skin." She raised her glass. "So tonight I invite all of you to join us in celebrating not just what Pinnacle has accomplished in these past 6 months, but what's possible when we choose to see challenges as opportunities for growth. Here's to hospitality without boundaries." The room erupted in applause as guests raised their glasses in response. As Maya stepped down from the stage, she was immediately surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her, ask questions, or simply be associated with the success of the initiative. Through the crowd, she caught sight of Tyler speaking animatedly with a group of hotel executives from a competing chain, clearly explaining some aspect of the training program. The sight filled her with quiet satisfaction. His journey from reluctant participant to passionate advocate embodied everything the initiative stood for. Later that evening, as the event was winding down, Maya found herself standing near the entrance to the ballroom watching as guests said their goodbyes. Diane approached, looking pleased but exhausted. "I'd say that was a success," she said, joining Maya. "The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. 3 more hotel groups have already expressed interest in licensing our training program." Maya nodded. "That's excellent news, but you know what I'm most proud of?" "What's that?" Maya gestured toward the lobby, where staff were going about their duties with quiet efficiency. "The fact that if I walked into this hotel tomorrow, dressed in sweats, no makeup, hair not done, no one would recognize me as the CEO, and it wouldn't matter. I'd still be treated with the same respect as any other guest." Diane smiled. "That's the real transformation, isn't it? Not just how we handled one incident, but how we've changed the entire culture." "Exactly," Maya agreed. "And that's just the beginning." As she looked around at the hotel she had almost been turned away from 6 months ago, Maya felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The incident that could have been simply another frustrating experience in a long line of similar encounters had instead become the catalyst for meaningful change. The transformation wasn't just in the policies and procedures. It wasn't just in the training programs or the operational standards. It was in the fundamental understanding that true hospitality meant welcoming every guest with the same respect and dignity, regardless of appearance or background. And as Maya Johnson, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality Group, walked through the lobby of the Grand Wellington that night, she knew that the surprise ending to her story wasn't about what she had done when refused a room in her own hotel. The real surprise was what that refusal had led to, a transformation that was now rippling outward, changing not just one hotel or one company, but potentially an entire industry. Because sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the most unexpected moments. And sometimes, the best response to being turned away is to open the door wider for everyone else. Maya nodded her thanks. Then let's move on to the details of our expansion plans. As the meeting shifted to the planned presentation, Maya caught Priya's eye across the table. Her assistant gave her a small smile and a subtle thumbs up. Maya hadn't planned for any of this when she boarded her flight yesterday. She had expected to check into her hotel, get a good night's sleep, and deliver a standard investor presentation. Instead, she had been given an opportunity to address a problem that affected countless travelers every day, a problem that many in the industry pretended didn't exist. As she began her presentation on Pinnacle's European expansion, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. What had happened last night wasn't just an isolated incident of poor customer service. It was a symptom of a larger issue, one that she was now uniquely positioned to address. And that was the revelation that would change everything, not just for the Grand Wellington, but for Pinnacle Hospitality Group as a whole. Because sometimes, the most powerful changes come from the most unexpected moments. The meeting continued, with investors asking questions and Maya laying out her vision for the future. But in her mind, she was already planning the next steps, the training programs, the policy changes, the metrics for measuring success. Because this wasn't just about one night or one hotel or one CEO who wasn't recognized. It was about creating a world where everyone was welcomed with the same respect and dignity, regardless of how they looked or what they wore. And that was a revelation worth fighting for.